Ever feel like you're wearing a mask? Presenting a version of yourself that isn't the real you? We all do it, to fit in, to impress, to avoid conflict. But what if that mask is actually weighing you down? What if true strength lies not in conforming, but in radical authenticity? In this video, we're diving deep into the Stoic concept of living in accordance with nature. We'll break down how embracing your true self, flaws and all, is not only possible but essential for a life of purpose, resilience, and inner peace. Get ready to shed the pretense, unlock your authentic potential, and discover the Stoic path to genuine happiness. Why do we feel this relentless pressure to be something we're not? Social media, of course, bears a lot of the blame. We curate idealized versions of ourselves, broadcasting highlight reels while carefully concealing the mundane realities of daily life. This creates a feedback loop, reinforcing the notion that only perfection is worthy of attention and acceptance. Consider the workplace. How many of us feel compelled to project an image of unwavering competence even when we're struggling? Admitting vulnerability, asking for help. These are often perceived as weaknesses, liabilities in a hyper-competitive environment. So we mask our doubts, perpetuating a culture of manufactured confidence. And what about our relationships? Do we present our true selves to our partners, our friends, our families? Or do we edit, filter, and tailor our personalities to fit their expectations? This constant performance drains our energy and erodes our sense of self. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it. We're all putting on a show. But what does any of this have to do with Stoicism? Well, the Stoics recognized this very predicament centuries ago. They understood the corrosive effects of external pressures on our inner peace and happiness. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this pressure. It's a philosophy centered on living in accordance with nature, focusing on what we can control and accepting what we cannot. And as we'll see, these principles provide a surprisingly practical framework for cultivating authenticity. Let's start with control. The Stoics made a crucial distinction between what is within our power and what is not. We have control over our thoughts, our judgments, our actions. We do not have control over external events, other people's opinions, or the capricious whims of fate. Much of the pressure we feel to conform stems from our desire to control things we simply can't. We want to be liked, to be admired, to be successful according to someone else's definition. But these things are ultimately outside our sphere of influence. The Stoic solution is to focus on what is within your control, your character. Strive to be virtuous, just, wise, and courageous. Let these qualities guide your actions, regardless of external circumstances. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. Because when you're focused on cultivating inner virtue, external opinions lose their power. You're no longer dependent on praise or approval to validate your worth. Your authenticity becomes an expression of your character, not a desperate attempt to win favor. There is a better way. We don't have to live in a loop of endlessly craving validation. We can opt out of this, because if we're not careful, we can morph ourselves, chameleon-like, to fit the perceived desires of others. We post that picture, not because we love it, but because we anticipate the likes. This endless pursuit of external acceptance becomes a prison of our own making. Consider the numbers. Studies show a strong correlation between the need for external validation and increased rates of anxiety and depression. A recent survey found that individuals who define their self-worth based on external sources are significantly more likely to experience feelings of worthlessness and inadequacy. They're also more susceptible to social anxiety and fear of judgment. These are not just abstract concepts, but real-world consequences of a life lived for others' approval. The more we prioritize others' opinions, the less we know who we truly are. This leads to a feeling of emptiness and a deep sense of disconnection from our own values and desires. Ultimately, it's a recipe for a life unlived, a life defined by what others want, rather than what we ourselves cherish. We wake up one day and realize we don't even recognize the person staring back at us in the mirror. The choices we've made, the paths we've taken, all feel inauthentic, disconnected from our core being. It's a trade that ultimately leaves us worse off than where we were when we started. Fortunately, there is a better way. Now that we've laid the groundwork, we can delve deeper into these virtues, beginning with wisdom. It's more than just accumulating knowledge. It's about understanding the true nature of things, about seeing through the noise and distractions of the world to grasp what is genuinely valuable. We start with wisdom. Imagine a politician making grand promises. Wisdom allows you to discern whether those promises are rooted in reality or are simply designed to manipulate. It encourages you to question assumptions, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to arrive at conclusions based on reason and evidence, rather than emotion or popular opinion. Next, we have courage. This isn't the blind bravado often depicted in movies, but rather the quiet strength to stand by your principles, even when it's unpopular or difficult. Stoic courage is the willingness to act in accordance with your values, regardless of the potential consequences. Now, let's talk about justice. This virtue is all about fairness, both to yourself and to others. It demands that you treat everyone with respect and integrity, regardless of their background, beliefs, or social status. Justice also requires self-compassion, recognizing your own flaws and extending the same understanding to yourself that you offer others. Consider how you react to mistakes, your own or those of others. Do you hold yourself and others to impossibly high standards? Justice prompts us to approach these situations with empathy and a desire for growth, rather than judgment and condemnation. Finally, we come to temperance. This is about moderation and self-control, not just in regards to physical pleasures like food and drink, but also in our emotional reactions. Temperance is the ability to master your desires, rather than being mastered by them. It's about finding balance and avoiding extremes. Imagine being caught in a traffic jam and feeling your anger rising. Temperance is the ability to recognize that anger, acknowledge it, and then choose a more constructive response. It's about finding contentment in the present moment and not being driven by insatiable cravings. This is where reason steps in, becoming your internal navigator. Stoicism emphasizes that our capacity for reason is our defining human characteristic, and it's the tool we use to discern what is truly within our control and what isn't. More importantly, it's what guides us toward virtuous action. When we align our choices with reason and virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, we're actively shaping our character. Think of it this way: reason is the language, and virtue is the music. Reason helps us understand the world around us, while virtue provides the ethical framework for our actions within that world. By developing both, we are creating a robust, self-correcting system that guides us toward a more authentic and meaningful life. This system is not just abstract, it's how we make decisions, respond to challenges, and interact with others. But how do we distinguish this internal compass from the cacophony of external pressures? We're constantly bombarded with messages, from advertising to social media, telling us who we should be, what we should want, and how we should live. This noise often drowns out our own inner voice, leading us to chase fleeting pleasures and superficial goals. The Stoic response to this is deliberate introspection, a constant filtering process. It's about recognizing the difference between genuine desires and manufactured ones. Are you pursuing a particular career path because you're passionate about the work, or because you're seeking external validation? Are you buying that new car because it fulfills a real need, or because you want to impress others? This type of questioning is the heart of Stoic self-awareness and crucial for cultivating an authentic life. In short, know thyself. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively on this idea of inner integrity. He urged himself, and by extension us, to be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. This is a powerful metaphor. It's about building a solid foundation of reason and virtue so that external pressures, the waves of life, can't easily erode your core values or your sense of self. That struggle between what we believe is right and the nagging voice of uncertainty is at the heart of what it means to live authentically when we choose well. We all experience it. But for the Stoic, it's not about silencing that voice, but engaging with it, understanding its source, and ultimately evaluating its merit. To do that, we need to know the methods we can use to validate our choices. One powerful tool is the Stoic practice of negative visualization. By contemplating the worst-case scenarios, we can often clarify our values and priorities. Consider, for instance, a situation where you're considering a career change. Self-doubt might whisper that you're not qualified, that you'll fail. But if you spend time visualizing the consequences of not making the change, the stagnation, the missed opportunities, you might find the fear of regret outweighs the fear of failure. Another effective method is to seek feedback from trusted sources, those who embody Stoic principles themselves. Not validation necessarily, but critical examination. Present your reasoning, your conclusions, and ask them to challenge your assumptions, to point out potential flaws in your logic. Ultimately, the goal is to cultivate confidence in your own moral reasoning. This doesn't mean believing you're infallible. It means trusting that you've done the work, you've examined the evidence, considered the alternatives, and arrived at a conclusion based on virtue and reason. Think of your character as a fortress, a stronghold built brick by brick with conscious choices. Each virtuous act, each moment of self-control, each commitment to justice adds another layer of protection. This fortress isn't meant to isolate you, but to shield you from the corrosive effects of external pressures and fleeting emotions. When faced with adversity or temptation, your character provides the resilience needed to stand firm. This concept of character as a buffer against external influence is critical. Stoicism acknowledges that the world is full of things beyond our control. Other people's opinions, economic downturns, even the weather. But our character, our internal commitment to virtue, is within our sphere of influence. By cultivating this inner strength, we can weather any storm, not unscathed perhaps, but unbroken. History is replete with examples of individuals who embodied this unwavering character. Consider Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman known for his unyielding integrity and opposition to tyranny. Even when faced with certain death, Cato refused to compromise his principles, choosing suicide rather than living under Caesar's dictatorship. His story illustrates the power of a character firmly rooted in virtue, a character that transcends even the fear of death. Or consider Nelson Mandela, who exemplified these Stoic virtues. Imprisoned for decades for his beliefs, Mandela never relinquished his commitment to justice and equality. He emerged from prison not with bitterness, but with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to reconcile a deeply divided nation. His unwavering character transformed him into a global symbol of hope and resilience. These figures, and countless others teach us that cultivating unwavering character is not just a philosophical ideal, it's a pathway to a more meaningful and impactful life. So, how do we actually do this? How do we consistently choose virtue and build this Stoic character we've been talking about? The answer lies in daily practice, in the small, consistent actions that seem insignificant on their own, but collectively shape who we become. Think of it as ethical weightlifting. You wouldn't expect to bench press your maximum on day one, would you? You start small, you build strength incrementally, and you remain consistent over time. These daily practices can be anything, really. It might be practicing active listening during a conversation, truly hearing what the other person is saying instead of formulating your response. It might be choosing honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. It could be exercising self-control by resisting that tempting impulse purchase, or sticking to your planned workout, even when you'd rather relax. Each of these small acts is a choice, a deliberate step in the direction of virtue, and this is where the power of the compound effect comes into play. Each virtuous act, while seemingly insignificant on its own, adds to the foundation of your character, making future virtuous choices easier and more natural. Ultimately, we are creatures of habit. Our brains are wired to automate repeated actions, turning them into ingrained behaviors. By consistently choosing virtue, we are literally rewiring our brains to make virtuous choices the default. We are creating a virtuous habit. Over time, these repeated choices solidify, becoming an integral part of who we are. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, it feels awkward and difficult, but with practice, it becomes second nature. The same is true of virtue. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until it is no longer a struggle, but an ingrained part of your character. Failure, in particular, is a powerful teacher. It's almost always unpleasant, but it provides invaluable insights. Each setback becomes a signpost, pointing us toward areas where we need to grow, to adapt, to become more self-aware. The scars of our failures, paradoxically, can become badges of authenticity, proof that we've wrestled with our demons and emerged, hopefully, a little wiser. For example, when we talk about the Stoic concept of preferred indifference, we're talking about things like health, wealth, and a good reputation. Stoics acknowledge that these things are, generally speaking, desirable. They are the kinds of things that, all else being equal, we would prefer to have rather than not have. On the flip side, we have dispreferred indifference. These are the things we generally rather avoid: sickness, poverty, and a bad reputation, for instance. But this is where many people misunderstand Stoicism. It's crucial to understand that neither preferred nor dispreferred indifference are inherently good or bad. To the Stoic, these are simply external circumstances. They are outside our direct control, and therefore, ultimately, they do not determine our worth as human beings. Ask yourself this: can wealth guarantee happiness? Can perfect health guarantee virtue? The answer, according to Stoicism, is a resounding no. A virtuous person can be poor or sick, and a wicked person can be rich and healthy. The Stoics weren't advocating for a life of poverty and pain. Rather, they recognized that our primary focus should be on cultivating virtue, on acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These qualities are entirely within our control, and they are what truly define us. The Stoic hierarchy of values places virtue at the very top. After virtue comes preferred indifference. This means that while we can and should pursue things like health and success, we should never do so at the expense of our integrity. We must never compromise our principles or act in a way that violates our conscience just to obtain these external advantages. Ultimately, understanding the difference between preferred and dispreferred indifference is about liberating ourselves from the tyranny of external circumstances. It's about recognizing that our true power lies not in what happens to us, but in how we choose to respond. So, what does all of this have to do with authenticity? Well, chasing after wealth and status often forces us to compromise our values. We start saying yes when we want to say no. We laugh at jokes that aren't funny, and we nod along to opinions we secretly disagree with, all in the pursuit of climbing the ladder. This constant performance, this curated image we present to the world, becomes exhausting. We begin to lose touch with who we really are. The person in the mirror becomes a stranger, a carefully constructed facade designed to impress rather than reflect. And here's the real kicker. The promise that wealth and status will bring fulfillment is a lie. We're sold this image of happiness, of a life lived on yachts and in mansions, but that's not where lasting contentment resides. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. The Stoics taught that true fulfillment comes from within, from virtue, wisdom, and self-control, not from fleeting external validation. Wealth and status can be taken away in an instant. Markets crash, reputations are ruined, and empires crumble. What remains when all of that is gone? Authenticity is what remains. Your character, your integrity, your ability to live in accordance with your values. These are the things that no one can take from you. And these are the things that will ultimately bring you the greatest sense of peace and purpose. Imagine the freedom that comes from releasing the relentless pursuit of external validation. Imagine no longer feeling the need to impress others, to constantly measure up to some arbitrary standard of success. This is the liberation that Stoicism offers. When we stop trying to be someone we're not, we free up energy to focus on what truly matters, living a virtuous life, serving others, and making a meaningful contribution to the world. This is where real fulfillment lies, not in the accumulation of material possessions or the fleeting praise of others. So, we've touched on the foundations. Now, let's explore why cultivating this Stoic mindset, particularly regarding our reactions, is so profoundly valuable. It boils down to something quite simple. We have far more control than we typically believe. We don't control external events, of course, but we are the masters of our internal responses. This distinction, so central to Stoicism, is where true power resides. Consider a traffic jam. The event itself, the cars, the delays, is outside of your influence. You cannot simply will the traffic to disappear, but you absolutely can choose how you interpret and respond to that situation. Do you succumb to frustration, allowing your blood pressure to rise and your mood to darken? Or do you accept the reality, perhaps using the unexpected time to listen to a podcast, practice mindfulness, or simply breathe deeply? The event is the same, but the experience, the story you tell yourself, is radically different depending on your interpretation. This is not some superficial exercise in positive thinking. It's about recognizing that the interpretation is the experience. Our minds are meaning-making machines. If we aren't actively shaping the narrative, external events will dictate it for us, often to our detriment. Furthermore, this control over our reactions unlocks a deeper sense of freedom and, crucially, authenticity. When we're constantly chasing external validation, clinging to specific outcomes, we become slaves to circumstance. We're acting, performing, rather than simply being. Detachment, a misunderstood concept in Stoicism, doesn't mean indifference. It means recognizing that our worth, our peace, isn't contingent on achieving a particular result. It's about finding satisfaction in the effort, in aligning our actions with our values, regardless of what happens next. This is where authenticity blossoms. When we're less concerned with controlling the uncontrollable, we're freed to be more present, more genuine. We're less likely to put on a show, to bend ourselves into shapes we don't naturally fit, just to please others or achieve some fleeting, ultimately unsatisfying goal. We can stand firm in our values, secure in the knowledge that our worth isn't determined by external factors. Let's start with the morning, where you can start the day right, before the emails flood in, before the demands of the world crash down. Take a few minutes. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror, not to critique your appearance, but to examine your intentions. Ask yourself, what values will guide my actions today? Will I be driven by external pressures or by my own reasoned judgment? One practical morning exercise might involve writing down 3 things. First, identify one potential challenge you anticipate facing. Second, articulate a specific Stoic principle you will apply to navigate that challenge. Third, note one action you can take today to align more closely with your authentic self, regardless of external validation. This sets the tone for a day lived intentionally. Now, let's get a bit more structured. The Stoics didn't just wing it. They advocated for methodical self-reflection. Seneca, for example, recommended a nightly review of your day, asking, where did I falter? What could I have done better? In what areas can I improve? It's like an athlete reviewing game film, identifying areas for improvement. Think of this method as a 3-part process: observe, analyze, adjust. Observe your thoughts, emotions, and actions throughout the day without judgment. Analyze the root causes of your reactions. Were they driven by fear, anger, or a genuine commitment to virtue? Finally, adjust your behavior based on your analysis, consciously choosing a more rational and virtuous response in similar situations moving forward. This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about continuous improvement. Consider what Seneca called moral accounting, where you examine your virtues and vices in action throughout the day. Were you patient in that frustrating meeting? Were you truthful, even when it was difficult? Acknowledge both successes and failures without dwelling on either excessively. The key is to create a balanced perspective. Don't beat yourself up for mistakes, but don't gloss over them either. See them as learning opportunities, chances to refine your character and align your actions more closely with your ideals tomorrow. This brings us to the final and perhaps most challenging aspect of this process: honest assessment. Stoic authenticity demands brutal honesty, a willingness to confront your own shortcomings without flinching. It's easy to rationalize, to make excuses, to blame others, but true growth comes from owning your part in every situation. This isn't about self-flagellation or dwelling in negativity. It's about clear-eyed self-awareness. It's about recognizing your flaws, accepting them as part of the human condition, and committing to continuous improvement. Remember, even the Stoics weren't perfect. They simply strived for virtue. So be honest with yourself about your intentions, your actions, and your reactions. This rigorous self-examination is essential for cultivating the self-awareness that is the foundation of Stoic authenticity and, frankly, for a well-lived life. So we know what authentic means, and we've covered how Stoicism's focus on virtue aligns with that goal. But knowing something intellectually and putting it into practice are two very different things. And when it comes to embracing authenticity, there's a significant hurdle we have to overcome: ourselves. It's difficult, isn't it, to truly look inward, to shine a light into the darkest corners of our own minds and confront the things we'd rather keep hidden? It's far easier to maintain the image we present to the world, even if it's a facade. Why is this so hard? Well, for starters, nobody likes to admit they're wrong or flawed or imperfect. Our egos are fragile things, and admitting our shortcomings can feel like a personal attack. Then there's the fear of judgment. What will others think of us if they see our true selves? The curated versions we present online, the carefully constructed personas we adopt in social situations. These are defenses against the possibility of ridicule or rejection. Authenticity, on the other hand, can feel incredibly vulnerable. But the Stoics understood that avoidance is a trap. By clinging to these illusions, we're not only hindering our personal growth, we're also preventing ourselves from experiencing genuine connection with others. True connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires authenticity. Authenticity requires courage. It takes real courage to face your own flaws, to acknowledge your pretenses, and to commit to being a better version of yourself. It means dismantling the carefully constructed walls you've built around your heart and mind and exposing yourself to the world, warts and all. This is not a comfortable process, but it is a necessary one. Stoicism is not about being perfect. It's about striving for virtue, even when it's hard. As a philosophy, Stoicism offers a powerful framework for establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries, protecting your inner peace, and promoting authentic living. It encourages us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, judgments, and actions, and to accept what we cannot. This understanding is crucial for breaking free from the trap of people-pleasing. By internalizing this core tenet of Stoicism, we can learn to detach ourselves from the need for external validation. We recognize that our worth is not contingent upon the approval of others. This allows us to make choices based on our own values and principles, rather than being driven by the desire to please. But the magic of authenticity doesn't stop with personal well-being. It ripples outward, touching the lives of those around us, often in ways we may not even realize. When we embody our true selves, living in accordance with our values, we create a space for others to do the same. It's a powerful form of unspoken encouragement, a silent invitation to shed pretense and embrace their own unique paths. Our choices, our actions, serve as a constant, often subconscious, form of communication. They telegraph our values, our beliefs, and our understanding of the world. When we act incongruently, when our words don't match our deeds, people notice. It creates a sense of distrust, a feeling that something isn't quite right. But when we act authentically, our words and actions aligned, it builds trust and fosters deeper connections. The Stoics recognized that authentic authority isn't conferred by a title or position. It's earned through integrity, through consistency in your values and actions. Consider Cato the Younger, who defied Julius Caesar, not because he craved power, but because he believed Caesar's actions threatened the Republic. He didn't succeed in halting Caesar, but his unwavering commitment to his principles cemented his legacy as a symbol of moral courage. This type of integrity resonates far beyond the individual. When you consistently act with authenticity, you create a ripple effect that influences those around you. Your actions become a model for others, encouraging them to embrace their own values and to act with greater integrity. One person embodying Stoic principles can be a catalyst for positive change within a family, a team, or even an entire society. Ultimately, by leading without attachment to influence, by embracing the Stoic mindset, we unlock a more profound and lasting impact. It's about recognizing that our actions, driven by virtue, can create a better world. It's a world where integrity and authenticity, not ambition, are the true measures of leadership. So, if you agree with the Stoics on this, do what they would do, act as they would act. Start small. Pick one virtue, like patience or courage, and consciously try to practice it in your interactions with others and your approach to challenges. Focus on progress, not perfection. Each conscious choice you make to act in accordance with your principles, no matter how small, is a victory. Celebrate those incremental improvements. Recognize that each time you choose virtue over impulse, reason over emotion, you are strengthening your inner self. Embrace the messy, iterative process of becoming more authentic. Be patient with yourself. Acknowledge the setbacks, but don't let them define you. Let them inform you. Let them fuel your commitment to continuing the journey. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of contributing to the common good, of recognizing our role in the grand tapestry of human existence. When we align our actions with our values, we find deeper meaning in our lives. Our authenticity, in essence, becomes a gift to the world, inspiring others to live with integrity and purpose. In some ways, being authentic may be the hardest job you'll ever love. It requires conscious effort, a willingness to examine ourselves honestly, and the courage to act in accordance with our values. It is about accepting that there will be discomfort, perhaps even disapproval, but holding fast to your inner compass. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "Be like the rock against which the waves continually break, which stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." That rock represents your core values, your integrity, your sense of self. External pressures, the opinions of others, the allure of fleeting pleasures. These are the waves. They can buffet you, wear you down, but they cannot change the fundamental truth of who you are if you remain steadfast. It starts with self-awareness. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? What are my core values? Where am I compromising those values to please others or to gain some temporary advantage? Journaling can be incredibly helpful here, as can meditation or simply quiet reflection. Then, practice acceptance. Accept what you cannot control, the actions of others, the weather, the political climate. Focus instead on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions. When you let go of the need to control the uncontrollable, you free up mental space and emotional energy to live more authentically. Finally, embrace virtue. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on living virtuously, being wise, just, courageous, and temperate. These are not abstract ideals. They are practical guidelines for living a meaningful life. When you strive to be virtuous, you are aligning your actions with your values, and that is the essence of authentic living. So, to recap, Stoic authenticity is about understanding your values, accepting what you cannot control, and living virtuously. It's about recognizing the difference between what is truly within your power and what is not, and focusing your energy accordingly. It's a continuous journey, not a destination, but the rewards in purpose, integrity, and inner peace are immeasurable. Here at the Stoic community, we encourage you to commit to living authentically, starting today. Choose one small action that aligns with your values and take that step. Write down your values and commit to reviewing them daily. Seek out resources and communities that support authentic living, because you don't have to do this alone. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey to authentic self-discovery begins with a conscious choice. Choose to be true to yourself, and you will find a strength and resilience you never knew you possessed. If this video helped you take back control of your life, leave a comment below sharing which strategy resonated most with you. Your insight might be exactly what another viewer needs to reclaim their own throne. And remember to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that builds mental strength and practical resilience. As Epictetus, a great Stoic thinker, once said, No person is free who is not master of themselves. Be the master of yourself by living authentically. If you commit to it, you can do it. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.